Streaming live from Treaty 1 territory in the heartland of the Métis Nation, the place where the great waterways meet and the heart of Turtle Island. We have guests from the territory of Toronto, which is grounded in the Treaty of a Dish with One Spoon and is home to some of the most diverse population in Canada. We also have a guest from Treaty 7 territory. I'm excited to host the 7th Nuit Blanche Talk series, Community Organizers and Engagement with the Public. Tonight, we have some incredible speakers on this topic. And first up is Reneltta Arluk, who is the Director of Indigenous Arts at the Banff Centre for the Arts and Creativity and is the founder of Akpik Theatre. Next, we have Michelle de Lyon, who is the Project Manager at Rise Entertainment and has facilitated life skills, development workshops, recreational programs, and educational conferences for multiple community agencies across North America. Next, we have Alyssa Fearon, who is the curator and director at the Dunlop Art Gallery and Regina Public Library. And in 2018, she was the inaugural curator of Nuit Blanche's Toronto Scarborough Zone. We then have Lila Karim, who is the founding executive director of North York Arts, and a charitable multidisciplinary arts organization that provides arts programming and services in Toronto. We then have Kerri MacDonald, who is the programming supervisor of city cultural events at the City of Toronto, who has led Doors Open and is now working with us on Nuit Blanche. And finally, we have Camille Usher, who is the executive director of the newly named Indigenous Curatorial Collective and is a PhD student at Queen's University. We've had some really great conversations with our past Nuit Blanche talks. We've reflected on the status of monuments, the struggle for performing arts as we continue to have to social distance. We've discussed the necessities of reconfiguring audiences and processes of having people participate in public art, and we've considered the ways in which massive public exhibitions and events are moving towards new models, and how will we continue to engage the public within a global pandemic. I've been fortunate to have a one-on-one chat with Mayor John Tory as he's expressed the importance of the arts for the City of Toronto, and tonight our talk explores the critical locality of community within the relation to the production of public programming in Canada with a strong focus on Toronto. Speakers will generate creative dialogue about the guiding potential of community collaborations through reflecting on their own experiences and contexts. We have a fantastic group of speakers with a diverse range of projects and community involvement, and we're going to ask our guests to revisit past projects and approaches tonight's conversation to illustrate ways in which multiple voices and positions can be included to strengthen the public and collective spheres. As our lineup tonight for this panel are fierce females who are leaders and programmers for major art institutions who traverse the ambiguous and shifting health crisis. And I hope tonight they might open up and share how they've been shifting to mobilize in our new environment. Examples are funding opportunities for artists and curators and how to distribute those funds, the shifting infrastructure and loss of funds, and how this is impacting how they engage with community. All of the organizations represented here tonight do some incredible programming and outreach. As I think it might be best to start with each of them telling us a little bit about where they are in their current positions and how your programming and community outreach has had to change since the pandemic. So I feel really honored tonight. I don't even know where to start. I was like, who should I get to go? I'm going to go with Reneltta, mostly because I had to say your name first. So give us some insight of what's going down over in Treaty 7.
Sounds good. Atira Reneltta Arluk, and I do come to you from Treaty 7 territory, the beautiful land of Banff National Park, the home of the Stoney Nakoda, the Sutton of the Dene, and Blackfoot, as well as Métis Region Local 3, and Tanaha from BC, and Cree all around us. So I'm the Director of Indigenous Arts at Banff Centre for Arts and Creativity. And since I've held the position for 3 years now, going into my 4th year, with the mandate of incorporating Indigenous-led arts throughout all of arts disciplines in response to the truth and reconciliation that Banff Centre is committed to doing, and they're working on their strategic planning right now and figuring out how to center Indigenous wisdom throughout campus and not just within the Indigenous arts and Indigenous leadership realm. We had really dynamic programming that was land-based, that was regional-based, national, global-based, because we are a really great hub for that. Since the pandemic, Banff Center has shut down just because we were all asked to close. We were under a PSI, so we're under an educational institution as well and have to live by those guidelines. But we have pivoted online. And so one of the first programs that came out was I hosted National Indigenous Peoples Day, and we offered online workshops with Laura Greer, Alberta Rose. We had welcome land acknowledgement welcomes from people in their own land areas. We had film showings from Stoney Nakoda AV Club and Jules Kustachin's film that was filmed on campus. So we do this land engagement, community engagement, and then national Banff Central alumni engagement. I'm also the founder and artistic director of Akpik Theatre, and Akpik is my name given to me by my great-grandmother. And we did a tour of Powaggan Macbeth through Treaty 6 territory. And I'm really grateful we did that pre-COVID. And then we were about to go up to the Northwest Territories and tour through my communities, my homelands. And we decided to postpone that tour prior to everything shutting down, because we were just thinking about our elders and our community members in those isolated places, and thought, what is the healthy and the healthy way to think about how we share art with each other on the land, and thankfully now we can do it online in different capacities. So I'm happy to dig in more, but I'm just really grateful to be here, and thank you, Masito Kuyanik, Julie, for inviting me to take part.
Well, it's always a pleasure. I get lots of opportunities to work with this amazing woman. So I was just going to say, do you want to expand a little bit on some of the stuff that you guys have been doing for some of the future programming or past programming for people who aren't familiar with the incredible center of Banff?
I'd love to. So, later on this month, we're going to gather Julie, Scott Benison Abandons, he's Weiss. We're going to mentor an emerging Mason Matla from up in the Northwest Territories, and Jason Lewis. And so we're going to do a digital media think tank. So now, now's the time to write your papers, write your books, write your plays, write your poems, and to do research and development in the work that you're doing. So that's what really Indigenous arts is focusing on, is doing that deep research, thinking about how we can better utilize and offer support and opportunity to train, to learn, and to engage with Banff Center and our incredible digital media Indigenous artists across Canada. We're keeping it within Canada just because we're considerate of time zones. But once we are allowed to able to offer on-site gathering, we are thinking also locally and nationally in that way. And so I'm really excited to offer a digital think tank on how we use Indigenous language through digital media and using VR, AR, and other areas. And so and as Jason Lewis said, to create other opportunities for emerging digital media artists to engage so they can find multiple access points. And Banff Center is a perfect access point for that. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's a long history and trajectory of that work being done at the Banff Center. And I think it'll be awesome and really important for the Indigenous arts portfolio to take up that work. So needed. Lila, I'm wondering if you tell us a little bit about some of the work you guys have been doing. I would say up in North York, but like seeing as the rest of us are actually north of Toronto, I don't know if it's that far up, but it's definitely up of downtown.
It is. It's north of Bloor, as they say. Well, thank you. First of all, I am so thrilled to be on this wonderful panel, and thanks for the invitation. And so my name is Lila Karim. I am the founding executive director of North York Arts. And North York Arts, for those, and thanks, Julie, for that actual amazing intro. We are a registered charity, as Julie mentioned, and we're one of the 6 local art service organizations in Toronto, where our purpose is to deliver on the city's social, economic, and cultural goals outside the downtown core. And we provide local arts events and programs to youth, seniors, and families with a focus on our newcomer communities and our neighborhood improvement areas within, in our case, within North York. In addition, we provide services and programs to support both emerging and established local artists and arts organizations, and we collaborate. We do a lot of collaboration with community, with our city councilors, with the culture division, hi Kerri, with, you know, all our artists, arts partners, local businesses, etc. So we're really about collaboration in terms of the kind of art creation in the work we do. And so since lockdown, we, you know, unfortunately had to pretty much change our entire programming slate, like all of us. And I'm trying to avoid to use the P word, so I'm going to say redesign. We had to redesign our programming slate, and we, you know, we thought the best way to do that was to clearly move online as best as possible, because that's the safest way. So I do have a few examples of how we did that. One program was the Seniors Animation Program. We partnered with the Toronto Animated Image Society, and we created an animated program for our seniors community members to learn about animation, to how to tell their stories, and how to connect online to build their digital skills, if I could say it that way. And they created an amazing reel. I should try to share it in the chat because it's just, the work is amazing. And it was a way for them to express how they're feeling, because as we know, our seniors are isolated during this time, and having this kind of online connection through creating was just amazing for this group in particular. We're hoping to continue with the program with getting some more funding around that. Another redesign was with our, normally in the summer season, we produce large scale music events at Mill Aspen Square, one of them being Sunday Serenades. And that's actually a project that we kind of took over from the City of Toronto a few years back. And so if you're not familiar with the program, it's a long-standing concert series that celebrates big band and jazz music. And so what we did is we redesigned that program to be online, working with big band and jazz artists to talk about the legacy and the impact of that genre of music within community, within the history of music and jazz, and also kind of connecting with our senior community members as well, so that they could share their memories of listening to, you know, Frank Sinatra or all those wonderful, you know, big band music musicians. So we did that online. The four bands that we connected with as part of this process, it was Jenna Marie Pinard, the Avocats Big Band, the Toronto All-Star Big Band, and the Martin Loomer's Orange Devil. Sorry, I couldn't quite remember their entire name, but it's such a memorable name, I don't know. So there are 4 podcasts, and each band kind of curated each podcast, and they had full creative control of telling their stories and working with community and working with the artists. And so we had really great traction in terms of like the online component. We went Facebook Live, as they say, with the program. It now lives on YouTube, so you can catch it. And again, it was very experimental for us because we're just used to kind of presenting this program in a live, you know, venue. But it was quite successful for us overall. So we were really happy about that. And then of course, with part of the dialogue, we did talk about you know, how there was a press of like the history of jazz with Black artists and the oppression that happened. And so we want to kind of carry on this dialogue, even if we were to redesign back into a live format next year, in person. We still want to have these deep conversations around the genre of music. And then of course, working with our friends at the city with Nuit Blanche, we partnered with Cinematoscape, their amazing North York-based digital media film company, and we showcased a video project called The Space Between. And this project is based on the play written by Simeon Towell that explores themes of like distance. So it's physical distance, emotional distance, cultural distance. And in this video piece, we had community members talk about that. And it was really, you know, focusing on pre-COVID. So, you know, a lot of, as we know, we have in North York in particular, but all in Toronto, it's a heavily populated newcomer community. So talking about the distance of family, of friends, and really just exploring that. So yeah, it was really great. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that even though the redesign has been really challenging, and I feel for everybody, I also want to thank the North York Arts team and all our partners for, really starting from scratch, like back in April. There's been some really amazing moments in terms of the engagement online that we've been having with our community members and with our artists. So yeah, it's been a really interesting ride. So I'll leave it at that, but I do have some other projects to talk about, but I know I can kind of go on forever. So
I think that's okay. We got enough time, but I just was going to say, how are you guys finding in terms of the engagement of people taking it up? Because one of the things I think I would like everybody to kind of think about is, when we do programming specifically around community engagement, we see bodies in space, right? We see physical people, and then we rate how well we've been doing based on the turnout and who's actually visible at that event. And so the difference with even now, we have a bunch of mystery people watching or listening to the talks right now. And it's like, we have actually no way of engaging which communities we're actually hitting and which ones we're not. And the same thing with you're talking about the deep conversations, which sound beautiful and poetic, and the stuff that I've been engaged with has been. And I just think, but we can't register it the same way. And I think that that's going to be an interesting way of how we evaluate how we're working or engaging with different communities, right?
totally.
So, I don't know, Michelle, do you want? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm sorry, someone else. I'm good. I think I'm good. I'll pass it on.
Michelle, you want to tell us a little bit about what you guys been doing?
Yes. So thank you, Julie, and hello to everyone who's out there, the mystery people.
I couldn't help myself.
That was a good one. I really like that one. That's how I felt. I'm like, can I see the audience anywhere? But actually, very good point. So with RISE, RISE stands for Reaching Intelligent Souls Everywhere. And we are a community arts and wellness organization based out of Scarborough. So we're even further, we're east of where the last speaker was from. So even more further out of downtown, but we have been able to truly reach intelligent souls everywhere through the work that we've been doing for the last 8 years, through having open mics. That's where it all started for RISE. We had Monday night open mics, which we still continue to do. Even in the age of COVID, we've been able to move that online. And through those open mics, they really provided a platform for people to express themselves creatively, and also to engage with people that they may not have, especially because Scarborough and East GTA can be a very disjointed kind of suburban community. And because of that, young folk especially often don't get to engage with anybody that's not outside of their school district. And sometimes that can be very isolating. I find, being a creative person myself, that it's often hard to connect with the average person. Like, they don't tend to have the same mindset. And having that space, I was a participant of RISE, like just an audience member at one time. And I started going 8 years ago when they first started. And I've been able to see them grow from like a room of 20 people up to, we've had events and showcases upwards of 500 people. And since having to move online, a lot of what we do is we try to now measure our effectiveness or our impact based on our reach and our impressions. So we're really up to the mercy of social media metrics to really try to understand our audience at this point. We've been fortunate that even our online program, what we do is we engage young people, I would say, but really just about anybody comes on our show. And through Instagram, we've been able to invite people. So we're able to see people live and perform live with myself and the founder of RISE, Reneltta J. We, and a few other, we go out into the community and we connect with people that really tell the story of who our audience members are. So we literally go into our audience and take people who are really wanting an opportunity to work in the arts to become hosts for Rise. So that's kind of really the story that truly happened to me, and that we've been able to continue over these last 8 years, almost a decade. I'm really proud that this organization has grown so exponentially. We've had a huge impact in the Scarborough community, so much so that our live open mics have also moved downtown. So now we do on the first Thursday of every month before COVID at 918 Bathurst. We've been putting on live showcases there as well. And through our programs, through our showcases, we've been able to not only engage communities, but also artists. We've been able to help them develop their talents, their skills, being performers, as well as people who are in the background, like the project managers and the producers, and all of the people that you need to be able to put on a really, I would say, a really entertaining, but also educational showcase. And that's actually part of Rise's mandate. We're not only an entertainment platform, but we also provide education for all of the people that walk through our doors. And in terms of continuing on in the age of COVID, so we've been continuing our our Monday open mics. We've been continuing our first Thursday of every week. We have an online showcase that's a more curated show. So it's not just anyone can like kind of sign up. That one, we have our hosts Akisha and Fatima, and what they do is they go out into the community and select artists that are really making an impact these days online, but also at the same time, we're connected to artists that we regularly kind of go to and provide opportunities to, so that whenever we have many connections right now with, for instance, we're a partner at Nuit Blanche as well. We're one of the organizations that sits on the Nuit Connects board, I guess you could say, or engagement committee. And through that work, we have many different opportunities for artists to be in shows, and we will kind of go down our roster. At this point, we've been able to build up a really cool roster of artists. And then we're kind of the middleman, or like the booking agent really now, for a lot of the major showcases that are happening with City of Toronto, as well as like organizations like the University of Toronto. We've been working with, most recently, we started an initiative, and this initiative was really in response to COVID. And that was, so through an organization called Black Initiatives, we've been able to provide over 500 families with care packages, hygiene packages, essential needs. And we basically, through the name that we've been and reputation that we've been able to gain with Rise, and the trust that we have with the community, especially in this social and political climate right now. All of like the, racial turmoil has always been there, but it's definitely at the forefront of the news right now in the media. And Rise has always been known as an organization for people that are racialized, marginalized, to be able to have a voice. So we've continued to provide that platform as well through with Black Initiatives, which was a new organization. And we've been able to use our reputation to be able to get people the things that they need. And that's kind of what we are continuing to do. So right now we're really focused on building partnerships with different organizations that can help us to broaden our reach and the impressions that we're making, just so that we can continue to do what we've always been known to do, which is to, reach intelligent souls and connect them to one another, so that, no one has to feel alone. Especially right now, it's isolation, I think, and mental health is a huge issue, and it's going to become even probably more so, especially as the winter months come. So we really want to continue providing that entertaining and educating platform to everyone that's willing to listen. So I think that's Rise in a nutshell. I hope I answered the question, and I'm sure hopefully that makes sense. Yeah.
No,
Thank you,
great.
Julie.
Yeah, no, thanks, Michelle. I remember when I got to meet you and you told me a little bit about the story and the evolution. And I think it's such a beautiful one because it's exactly what the mandate of what Rise wanted to do. You actually embody that. And so, you came out as a participant and now you're, project managing and doing all this incredible work. And that's exactly what that's supposed to be. Camille, do you want to talk a little bit about the newly named Indigenous Curatorial Collective? Sorry, I had to kick that one in there because it was a pretty exciting time. Tell us.
I sure do.
Yeah.
I I keep on calling us the ACC because it's just like such an old habit. I feel like it's gonna be,
Yeah.
we're all gonna be playing that one for a while.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so we used to be the Aboriginal Curatorial Collective, but we just had our AGM last weekend, and our members voted to allow us to change our name to the Indigenous Curatorial Collective. So not a huge change, but for me, it's revolutionary. Yeah, so it's very exciting. So if I say the ACC, I mean the Indigenous Curatorial Collective. So bear with me. But generally, the Indigenous Curatorial Collective is an organization that brings together Indigenous curators, arts professionals, artists from across the globe, generally in a gathering that we have every 2 years where people get to talk about the practices that they do, sharing resources, ideas, celebrating each other's practices, these kinds of things. Our work has very much been focused on being in person and being together. And so having gatherings where it's centrally about actually just being physically together to celebrate in person has been really hard during the pandemic. And so it was actually myself and the director of programming, Camille Usher, we were in Regina trying to plan our next gathering that was supposed to happen in June 2020, which obviously was canceled. But we were there right as all the museums and galleries were posting that they were closing their doors and canceling contracts and postponing exhibitions. And, our partners and us just decided that it was not a good time to host anybody traveling. So we canceled the gathering while we were there. So we had a couple of days where we were just in Regina and nobody was outside. So we were just sitting in the restaurant, not doing anything, drinking too much coffee, as you do. But what we saw, because we were just on our computers, was hundreds of Indigenous artists that were posting about how the closing of museums affected them personally. Contracts closing, a lot of Indigenous arts workers work in the gig economy. And so when your contract is canceled, that could be your revenue for an entire year. And so we saw friends, we saw our community members freaking out, not knowing where their next paycheck would come from. And so within a couple of hours, I saw this happening. I sent my board a very kind of panicked email, and I saw that Lila is here, so he can vouch for me. But I just said that we need to do something. We're an arts organization. We're not very big, but we have this community, and they are calling out for help. So what can we do? And so Camille and I just decided very quickly to initiate a program that we called Curating Care. And with it, we said that we would give $100 honorarium for every 2-minute video that an Indigenous artist or curator, whatever your practice is, could submit. And in this 2-minute video, they would talk about who they are, what they do, and how they locate care in their artistic practice. Very simple. We didn't want it to take people's time because, people were panicking and freaking out. And this project very quickly became global and got a lot of attention, which I wasn't expecting. We still get video submissions for it, without an honorarium expected, but people just wanting to be a part of a conversation about care when the world is falling apart. And so this is something that we now realize that we are going to carry on each year. So Curating Care will become a program that we continue to do. in many different forms. But because it became global, I suppose, we gained a lot of attention. And the In Spirit Foundation saw what we were doing and decided that they would partner with us. So we were able to increase the honorarium amount to $250, not a lot more, but enough that somebody could buy groceries for a few more days. And we were able to give it to more people. And so once we were kind of coming to the end of curating care, diminishing our funds with that, I was like, what are we going to do now? And then just kind of as I was trying to figure out what our next step was, we were contacted by the Canada Council for the Arts, who had just been given a large sum of funding for emergency relief. And so in the end, we were able to give almost $500,000 to Indigenous artists throughout the pandemic, just to support their lives, to support them going to buy groceries, to compete with hordes of people that were emptying grocery stores at alarming rates. And so that's kind of how we pivoted during the pandemic. It was very quick and very intense, but it really has kind of influenced, I think, a new page for the Indigenous Curatorial Collective as really a pillar of the community that has shown that we are here to support Indigenous arts professionals in a way that we haven't been before. And then outside of that, we have our gathering that's coming up, and it's going to take digital form this time, which is totally new for us, but it's really exciting. We're going to be opening it up with a digital drag show with folks from Canada and the US. And our whole gathering is about care and talking about why we love our community. And that's just what we're focusing on now. So I think that's me.
Yeah, I think you left out the best part there. They actually, I didn't get to participate because I was busy organizing Nuit Blanche, but you guys had bingo. So like, I was like, when's she going to talk about the bingo? I was like, that's all I heard about. I missed the bingo. I didn't get the prize. I heard it was a beautiful jean jacket with some fringe. And so I was, I think that it's such an interesting way to think about, to shift how we're trying to do stuff and trying to connect. And I think people are just really needing that, whatever that looks like. And I think that the reason the program took off so quickly is just what you said. People just needed to know that other people were listening, because you're sitting in lockdown and isolation, and the art's about communicating and actually communicating feelings and thoughts and ideas. And then all of a sudden, you have nobody to communicate any of that to. And I think that that's such an important aspect, not only, to use your guys' word, but to curate with care, but it's also thinking about, how do we support people in a time when we don't actually have the kind of infrastructure that we would normally have, and how do we connect, because we can't get together and gather the same way that we would normally, and then how do we create fun ways of engaging with people in the public, virtual public sphere? What does that look like? Alyssa, do you want to tell us a little bit about, you just did a big move in the middle of the pandemic?
I know. I do not recommend that. Do not move in a pandemic. So I recently moved to Treaty 4 territory. So I'm based in Regina, Saskatchewan right now. And I recently became the director/curator at Dunlop Art Gallery, which is situated inside the Regina Public Library system. And so I guess I'll speak a little bit more about my previous position, which was in Brandon, Manitoba, at the Art Gallery Southwestern Manitoba, because that's where I was when the pandemic first hit. And that's where I had to do a lot of pivoting. I'm still doing a lot of that now that I'm in my new role, but I guess when the pandemic, when everything first shut down in the middle of March, I was in the midst of organizing an exhibition for Casey Adams, who is a Korean Ojibwe artist who's based in Winnipeg. So yeah, I think some of you guys know Casey. Yeah. Yes, just a bit, right? So the exhibition, which is called Getchu Getchuan, Water Flowing Eternally Around Us, it was something that Casey and I had been working on and planning for almost a year prior to the pandemic. So we were so close to being finished, and we were ready. You know, the shipping had been organized, we were ready to install everything. Everything was ready, but then we had to shut down the gallery pretty quickly, which required a lot of thinking, you know, in terms of like, should we cancel the show, postpone the show? What should we do? But Casey was great, and she's super tech savvy. So we were able to move everything online. And I would say that it actually allowed us to engage more people potentially than had we had the exhibition and programming take place in person, like on site in Brandon. Brandon is a relatively geographically isolated small city, and relatively, it's about 2.5 or 3 hours, I think, away from Winnipeg. It's about a 3-hour drive, 2.5-hour drive.
Depends how fast you drive.
Yeah. Right. And so, but by having the exhibition and all the programming happen online, we were definitely able to reach way more people. So that sort of worked out for us in a way. And then, so in terms of what I'm doing in my current position at Dunlop Art Gallery, which I just started a couple months ago at the beginning of August, so things have changed so much, like entirely. So so with those changes, it involves coming up with new systems, new processes, like just new ways of doing things, in addition to doing the work itself. And I find myself thinking a lot more about that now in the position that I'm in as a director. So really thinking about the ways that people are working, the ways that I can get my staff to work together. So it's not necessarily the most sexy part, but you know, somebody has to do it. But I'm definitely thinking in terms of our reach globally. Like, I'm really thinking international with the work that we're about to be doing. And you know, why not, right? Because we don't have to think about costs in terms of travel and accommodations and all those sort of ancillary costs that come with bringing people in. We really, the sky's the limit, and that's definitely how I'm approaching the work now. And so it is a shift in the way of how we're thinking and programming. I definitely want to still stay connected to the local, of course, but I don't see why we can't sort of bring people like international artists in as well, and make those connections between artists based in Regina, artists based in the prairies, to artists who are based in, like, I don't know, Hong Kong or Ghana. Like, why not? So that's very much what we're trying to do now.
Yeah. Sounds awesome. It's exciting too. I think it's kind of an exciting moment. And I would say, like, even so far, I've been watching, they just, Nuit Blanche did a repost of like one of the works out in the middle of like the circumpolar. And it's just like so neat for me to think about, you know, the shift from it being not just Toronto centric, but also like being a much more global conversation for Nuit. And I think you're right. I think I'd say that's one of the best positives coming out of lockdown, isolation, and everything moving to online, is all of a sudden you have access to an audience that you wouldn't normally have. And then you also have access to artists and critical thinkers in a new kind of way. Kerri, you want to talk? You got to do 2 big shifts. You did Canada Day online, and you got to do Nuit online. So
I know, sometimes I look back, and that was just in the last like 4 or 5 months, and I'm like, wow. Yeah, I mean, I've like you said, Julie, I worked previously at the city on all types of events, Canada Day, Cavalcade of Lights, New Year's. I was the lead at Doors Open Toronto, which is a festival of sites that open their doors and people physically walk in and, you know, enjoy what those sites have to offer. And I've always helped out with Nuit. I've played like a lot of different roles on Nuit during the years, but this is the first time that I was more of a major player and working with the major institutions and also the local art service organizations, including Lila's, North York Arts. Last year, the amazing LASO, as we call them, East End Arts were the first to become part of the major institutional group. And so it was really great this year to have North York Arts become part of it. And I'm in discussion with the other four, trying to encourage them to participate in the same way for future years. So Canada Day Online was part of a national endeavor by Canadian Heritage. Many cities participated, and we in Toronto partnered with Harbourfront Centre and TO Live, as well as a television production company. And it was a very fast and intense programming experience. One of the things that we really decided early on was we wanted to share whatever budget we had with as many artists as we could, especially those that had already had gigs that they were going to be performing on Canada Day, but unfortunately, most of those events, all of those events got canceled. So working with groups such as the Amazing Rise, who we have such a great relationship with, we reached out to all of our many contacts throughout the city from the three organizations, and really made sure that we could, have people and artists perform from all over the city. Not just those that are centered in the downtown core, but from as many geographical, ethnocultural, Indigenous, and differently abled communities as we could. And so that was really rewarding, and a wonderful way to also learn about new artists that I had maybe not seen myself or knew about, just because we were working as a team with the staff teams from the other two organizations. So that was, and it was different. I mean, it was the first time I'd ever done anything like that. And, there was all these COVID rules and how to film and social distancing. And we also did some of our taping in the Alma Combo, which was amazing because, it's open now, but a lot of people hadn't seen it, and I had never seen it. So, and by the way, it looks fantastic. So that was another great opportunity. And we also tried to reach out to as many centers throughout the city, whether they be our own city museums or like the home base of Scarborough Arts, for instance, which is a lovely building on the bluffs. And we tried to get arranged for artists to film there at those places as well, so that we weren't, again, just focusing on the downtown core, but we had as many of the different parts of the city represented in terms of geographical sites as possible for filming. And then I moved into Nuit Blanche, and I was working with the major institutions in the Lassos, and we had 10 participate this year. So East End Arts and North York Arts, 401 Richmond, Aga Khan Museum, Batashu Museum, the Gardner Museum, the Japanese Canadian Cultural Centre, Mocha Toronto, and the Royal Ontario Museum, and Humber College as well. And that was a wonderful experience because we had to work with them on what are we going to show? What are we going to present? What kind of content? So first we got a lot of ideas from organizations about talks, but we were also producing our own talks and podcasts. So really trying to work with everybody to figure out, what other types of presentations could we offer? And some of the organizations shared maybe one exhibit, but with live video content. Some organizations like Humber had 5 or 6 projects. All the genres ended up being represented, and it was a wonderful way. In a way, it was because I'd worked with many of these organizations before on other projects and with Doors Open Toronto, but I hadn't worked with them as major institutional partners for Nuit. And so it gave me the time and focus to really get to know the people at each organization and to really take that care to spend time with them. And, and it was also important, I think, for all of us to continue to be connected throughout all of this, to continue to dialogue, to talk about what was going on in the community, not just with Nuit Blanche, but just generally, just as people, like just to reach out and I, after the after the process ended just last weekend, I mean, it's not ended because the relationships will continue. I was always calling the people from the sites of my friends, all my friends at the MIs, right? Because I felt like it gave me the chance to really get to know people and to build those relationships and to have the time and the energy and the focus to, you know, talk through things. And really, my goal was to continue to build those relationships for the future. Because, you know, when people come on board as a partner of Nuit Blanche or anything we do at the city, we really want them to be stakeholders in our events. And we as staff, really, we're the face of the city at that point. I mean, we represent the city cultural events, and you want to have a good, respectful, professional relationship with everybody that you're working with. So the COVID time and those months of producing everything digitally really gave me the chance to really connect with people, and I'm so happy about that. That's definitely been a positive. So for Nuit and the major institutions, Julie and I worked with them on their content, and we talked to them about, you know, what did they have? Maybe it's older material. Some of the material was new. Some of the material, like the Aga Khan shot a video in this amazing exhibit they did about prayer rugs in the Sanctuary Gallery. And the best part of that was they asked me if I wanted to come and watch the filming of it. And that was great to go to meet the artist, to meet with Charity Chan and the other staff members there, and to really just be a part of all of that creativity and that work just coming together and coming to fruition was amazing. And then it was shown, you know, on Nuit night to all of the Nuit Blanche audience. And so that was amazing. To work in that way. How we measure who we connect with, I don't know that I know the answer to that. I mean, the city's always really interested in metrics and numbers, and Julie knows. You know, how do we assess like who we're connecting with? You know, I don't know. I think there's a lot of ways we could do that. And I think at the city, like, especially after Nuit, I think we'll be having a lot of those conversations. I don't know if you agree with that, Julie, but we probably will, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's going to be interesting. You're all just making us jealous because you're like, I went to a live performance and I saw everybody's face go.
It was so exciting. You know what? I called my friend in the morning and I said, I'm going to the Aga Khan and I'm going to see a performance. It's going to be filmed and I'm getting all dressed up just to go there. You know, it was like a big deal for me, believe it or not.
I think by everybody's facial expression, I feel like everybody's in agreement. They're like, oh, live performance. And, you know, Reneltta, you just finished doing a full performance. And so the next question I want to ask is actually, we've been getting some really great feedback from based on the fact that it's my email that goes out and says thank you for registering. And so I've been getting lots of good feedback on the talk series. And so I actually was asked to ask a question tonight, and which I thought was a great question by one of the artists who emailed me, and he wanted to know, you know, what tools do curators, programmers, and community organizers use in determining how to keep various publics or community groups from feeling alienated. So, you know, how do you navigate that? And if there's any kind of tools. We don't have lots of time, but I think if anybody wants to pick that up, I think it's a really important question that we need to kind of ask ourselves. Not only how do we evaluate, you know, which target audience we're hitting, or, you know, which communities we're engaging with, but not only, you know, what are the kind of tools that we use in order to make sure that we're engaging and not making some communities feel alienated.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody want a shot?
With National Indigenous Peoples Day, and for the show that we just did for All That Binds Us, I asked for a regional response, like who are we reaching out online as well? And you know, it's still regional and it's still community based, and that was really encouraging to learn. And so knowing that our community that we're building relations with in person are carrying that relationship into the digital world has really kept my focus to like, let's stay focused into the community that I know, the community that I built relations with. And so if it's just reaching out to kind of like Akpik Theatre, we got some funding from Canada Council from COVID funding. And so what we did is we reached out to the company and met with them, and we gave them each a fee to say, this is your fee to do with whatever you want. And this is for you. We appreciate you. We miss you. And we can't wait till we can gather again. And so just for Akpik Theatre and that arts community, that's really important. And then with all that binds us, we had in-house performances, 20 people per show, but I also asked for the data on that. And again, it was like a lot of people from Edmonton tuned in to watch that show. And so if anything that I've learned is to stay connected to your community that you have a connection with already. And then the extra parts are bonus when people are coming in from outside to witness your work and what you're doing.
Yeah, that's so true. Anybody else want to chime in?
I can chime in. I feel like I'll try and make this very fast. But one thing that I have noticed a lot, just particularly with the communities that we work with, which is predominantly Indigenous curators, a lot of which work in and alongside major arts institutions across the country. And I think one thing that we've all noticed in relation to major arts institutions is that they can be incredibly, I'm gonna try and say this in a nice way, not great places for BIPOC peoples to work. We all know the saying, last hired, first fired. And I feel like that became very clear during the pandemic because it was our communities that were having to deal with this. So one thing that I have taken on personally is doing a significant amount of advocacy work to ensure that arts institutions across the country are being accountable and are doing the work that they need to do right now to be accountable, and telling them that I will not do this work for free anymore. And that has been a really important message to arts institutions. I don't know if they're listening, but I know that some people have paid the Indigenous Curatorial Collective to consult them. So I feel like maybe some things are changing, and I hope that it does reflect in better places for Indigenous, Black, people of color to work, because we do need, CEOs that are, from Coast Salish nations. Like, we need CEOs that are, people of color. Like, we need to be filling these roles because that will make better places to work. So I've been really focusing on advocacy and building policy and that kind of stuff, but that's it.
I was going to say that earlier on, even before the other two initiatives, I was part of the Arts Online initiative that was started by the city, with the major partner on that being National Ballet School of Canada, just because they were very advanced in all of their developmental work for online classes and workshops. So we did a lot of outreach to many organizations in Toronto, and we did a landing page. So if you were offering programming, whether it was for school, it was for families or adults or whatever, everything is now gathered on this Arts Online homepage, and that's been going on since the early days of when we all got sent to work at home. And one of the things I noticed sometime on these kind of initiatives is that people will kind of go to the same old organizations, that people kind of reference. And so one of the things that we did was I really wanted to do was to reach out and to get to the smaller grassroots organizations. And so with the help of the Ontario Arts Council and also all of my colleagues at the city who work with so many different groups and so many communities, we were not only, we got that word out, but I also, let people know, call me and talk to me about it, right? And so there were some people that wanted to get online but didn't know how. So I started like matchmaking them up with other organizations that were already doing it, right? Because I'm kind of a matchmaker anyways, but and just kind of like, bringing people together and saying like, share the knowledge, right? And so I think that's really important. And also for the work that we did on Canada Day and the doors, I'm not Doors, I'm sorry, Nui. I'm a person who likes to go out and meet people a lot. Like I get in my little red car and I drive all over the city. And it was difficult at first because I'm like, well, I can't go anywhere. But through email and the phone and just that constant like saying to people like, call me, like let's talk through it. And I think that's really, really important, right? And sometimes we know that, like I said before, we don't have the time, maybe sometimes in the ability to take care and really do that personal outreach. So again, this was a time where I just thought, hey, I'm an extrovert and I love being and talking and experiencing people. So like I'm just gonna go for it. And it was really great to have those experiences.
Julie, I just want to chime in very quickly because I know we're getting close to our time, but the lassos with the number of community arts organizations, we created the Community Arts Canopy. It's a collective group where we felt it was really important to, check in on our community arts sector, be it our cultural workers, be it our artists, our practitioners. And we recognized back in April that there wasn't this collective, there wasn't this platform. So we mobilized as we do in community arts, and we created this group. We are going to continue. So we had our first town hall in June, and we did a survey to kind of get a sense of how everyone's feeling. So we do actually have some metrics and data to kind of respond to and to review. And then we're working on building some initiatives around this community arts canopy, having a next town hall probably in the early new year at some point. We're trying to get some funding around this, but it's really a vehicle in a way for groups and we're focusing on Toronto, but definitely, it's welcome for artists and everyone to really have a platform to connect and share, and also just to support each other, because as we've all acknowledged, it's been really tough and really challenging. So it's a way just to come together within the community arts canopy. So I just wanted to share that.
Michelle and Alyssa, you want to get a couple of, do it.
Can I get in there? Yeah. I mean, I love to meet new people, but of course with the pandemic, it's so much harder. And particularly moving to a new city in the middle of a pandemic, meeting people is even harder. It's even more challenging. So I think for me, one of the ways that I've been trying to deal with connecting with communities, even though it's hard to actually meet people, I've been really getting interested in the history of the place, like the history of this region and the land that I'm situated on at the moment. So of course that looks like, kind of approaching it from a decolonial perspective. So understanding the First Nations and the histories of the First Nations communities here in Regina and Saskatchewan and the prairies. And I'm also particularly interested in the histories of early Black communities in the prairies and Saskatchewan, also Manitoba, because I'm just coming from Manitoba. And so for me, I think that's become a way for me to sort of to connect with the past has been a way for me to connect with present communities in this region. And of course, think more deeply about the future of the communities that I see myself as contributing to a foundation in my work, which I hope will sort of be there for, the next 50 years or something. So really thinking about not just what Regina of today looks like, but what's Regina of 50 years from today going to look like, and how am I sort of contributing to a foundation for those future artists.
Yeah, to quote Sherry, the long thread.
Yes, for
Michelle,
sure.
you got to get a word in here quick.
All right, I'm getting a word in. All right, so one of the ways that we have been able to reach other groups, or maybe ones that feel that they don't have as big of a voice, is when we select like our hosts and people and the artists that we select, we're very mindful of how we select that. So we do think about, the balance of men between women or genders. We think about what groups are being represented by the artists that we select and the ones that we promote or the ones that we connect to these bigger organizations. And like Kerri had mentioned as well, we try to reach out to artists and organizations that don't normally get the shine that maybe they could. And so us being an organization that's more well connected, we try to use those connections to get them the platform that they may deserve. And even some of the hosts that we select, as I was mentioning, we try to make sure that are they from like the LGBTQ community, and that in that way we're hoping that we can broaden the audience, but also continue to educate people on what's happening. And we have we're very lucky in that way to be able to provide that. So we really try to use like the connections and the relationships that we have managed to strengthen to help those who are new to breaking into the arts world or into community or into wellness.
Yeah, perfect. That's a great spot to end. I want to say thank you to our continued support from our partners at the University of Toronto Scarborough and the Dorothy McCarthy Gallery to recognize the support of the province of Ontario Celebrate Program Grant. I want to say Chi-miigwech, Marcy, and thank you so much to our incredible, fierce guests that are sharing some of their awesome experiences. And I can't thank you enough that you give up your time and energy to put your critical thoughts and ideas and all your hard labor on the table for everybody to listen to. And I think the work that you guys are all doing is really incredible. And I'm very proud to get to host you guys tonight. So thank you so much. Do not miss our final Nuit Talk on the digital pivoting, overuse of the screen, as our final wrap up, which I thought was kind of fun because I keep trying not to say the word pivot. And that's next Thursday on the 15th of October. And the great news is our open call for independent projects and open call are now open on the website. So thank you so much, everybody, and have a great night. Chi-miigwech, Marcy, thanks, guys.